Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Leadership today demands more than a confident voice. It asks for truth, for courage, and the ability to stand in your own vulnerability. Few public figures embrace that balance more openly than the Honorable Lisa MacLeod. She's a co founder of Secord Strategies and Wandering Women North of 50. From reshaping how we talk about mental health in positions of power to redefining the influence of a woman over 50, a group too often dismissed, yet driving the country's next great economic wave, she's helping shift both mindset and marketplace. Today, she joins us to explore what it means to own the microphone, challenge invisibility, and lead with authenticity in a world that still learns what real strength looks like. Lisa, welcome to Empowered. I'm so excited to have you on today.
I am so excited to see you. So thank you very much. This is my first TV interview since I left politics. So much appreciated.
Oh, I feel honored. This is amazing. So let's just jump right in then. That you
Sure.
have moved between politics and media, mental health advocacy, and economic leadership. What through line do you that connects all of those chapters for you today?
Well, look, I will say this. I have been a big believer in the Canadian dream. I have always had equal opportunity as a woman, and I struggle with mental illness. And so when I left politics after 6 terms, I spent 19 years there, raised my daughter. She's going to be 21 next month. I would be serving 20 years next month if I stayed. Um, I decided I wanted to create my own job, and I wanted to turn my own terms of reference into my next vocation. And so I decided, what did I like? What is my obligation still to society? And how can I best amplify those matters? And so over the past year, look, there's been a lot of successes, but there's been failures. I'm dealing with mental illness, so that's always something that I have to control, just as anybody with diabetes does. And I've come up with a plan for me that works for me, that make sure I can pay the mortgage, but at the same time allows me to really advocate for things I believe in, like a strong, united Canada, the rule of law where women are equal, equal opportunity where it comes to job creation, and supporting the industries that actually drive the country, yet are often underestimated, and then the women who power them, who are always underrated.
So, okay, you've just mentioned mental illness. You speak openly about mental illness in leadership spaces where that honesty is still really, really rare. Like you don't hear that many people just coming out and saying it. What do you think we misunderstand most about strength and vulnerability at the top?
I think that we have a lot of leaders who will go on Bell Let's Talk Day, use the hashtag, stand in front of the sign, and really, look empathetic. And I'm sure they are for the moment. And then they go on until a year from now, and then they do the same video. And I think until they live with it or they have someone in their family that lives with it, it's really hard for them to actually drive the agenda behind closed doors, because there still is stigma and shame. One of the most eye-opening um, debates that I ever had in the legislature was when I just come back from my medical leave, and there was actually a mental health debate, and the chief government whip at the time asked me if I would speak, and I said sure, but I'm not using any notes. And as I listened to the debate, it was actually heartbreaking, because there were really good people there that were listening to talking points that were written probably by a 26-year-old in the corner office of the NDP, the Liberals, and my party, the Tories. And I stood up and I said, guys, put the talking points down. I don't want to hear about your speeches. I know over there that there is a member who lost a son in law. I know over here there is a parent who is struggling with their child's mental health. I know over there is a man whose daughter years ago was dealing with depression. I didn't, point out who they were. But I said, if you actually want to stand up for me and for them, you talk about your own story. And not only do you find empathy amongst our colleagues, but the people we represent, they want to hear from us that we understand where they're going. And it became one of the best debates I listened to in my 6 terms at Queen's Park, because people then did put the notes down and they respected my request and they told their stories. And to me, Elizabeth, that's where the leadership has to be taken. It can't be taken from one day a year. It can't be taken from a speech that a young person has written for you. God love them, they work hard. But
Lisa, hold
that's
that
where I
thought.
think,
We'll be
yep.
right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. The balance of power belongs to women is today's topic. Okay, Lisa, let's just jump right in. Women over 50 are often treated as culturally invisible, yet you describe them as one of the most powerful economic forces in the country. What are institutions missing, and what's the cost of ignoring these women?
Well, I'm glad that you raised it because it's really incredible. We're the ones that do the family budgeting. We're the ones who pick the brands, our families, our businesses, our friends. Enjoy. We're the ones that cast the deciding ballots in every election. Just ask any party pollster, and at the day, we're the ones that make the booking. So, if you look at household income across this country and the spend, it's worth about $1.6 trillion. Women, particularly women our age, are responsible for 80% of that. Like $1.3 trillion, that's nothing to sniff at. And then if you look at household spending on booking travel, that's up to 90%. So you have to be, really under aware in your industry if you're not focusing on this particular segment of the population. In many cases, we're the first women to have gone to university in our families. We're the first women to have led either departments, ministries, publications, finance ever. We are also the first that actually had to juggle a career and our children in great quantities. If you think about the women between 50 and 75, 80 in this country. So they are trailblazers. They're people that led from the front lines for a very long time. They have the most disposable income of any female cohort in the history of the country. And so if you're not catering to this group, you're missing more than 52%. You're missing 80% of the economic influence in the country. So I'm just trying to say we're powerful, we're influential. And if you want to do well with us, because we're extremely loyal as well, you'll cater to our needs.
I love it. I love it. Now, I want to talk about Canada. You've said Canada is at a moment of cultural and economic reckoning. What does a strong, confident Canada look like to you in practical terms and not just slogans?
Yeah, well, look, I think the first thing is equality under the law. You can't go a day in Canada without seeing three or four stories where there's an issue about sexual violence against women and children, and with bail being lessened and sentences being lightened. So we have to make sure that we are looking after those vulnerable women so that they can become strong economic leaders and strong cultural leaders who stand up for our values. And our values and our culture is that women are equal to men. We're not seeing that in the rest of the world. We are seeing in London and England um, rape gangs. We've seen Epstein Island. We have seen in different parts of the third world that we're having challenges with child marriage and other things. So the first things first, let's make sure our culture is safe and that the law and order component of our country is there and intact. And then secondly, start empowering women to make more money, make more economic decisions.
And that seems to be, a topic for discussion on many of these shows. So I'm really happy that you brought it up because it keeps coming up over and over again. We've got about a minute 30 before we go to commercial break. I want to talk about you. You've worked inside government and now shape conversations outside it. What can media do better to elevate substance over spectacle, especially in polarized times?
Yeah, I think we are polarized, and it's getting worse. And I think people are deciding to pick certain media outlets over others because they amplify their echo chamber. So I think that there needs to be more truth in reporting, and it's got to be by the facts, and we have to be realist. We cannot be idealist in these challenging times. There's wars virtually on every continent now, or some type of civil strife, and I think that it is really incumbent upon media today to tell the truth and to tell all the stories, because we also find sometimes the media, not you of course, but others tend to go after the same stories and try and one up their competitor when we're only getting one story where there's multiple issues.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and thank you for saying not me, because I like to talk to women leaders and talk about their experiences and help the future leaders that we have coming up next. So, to me, it's really important just to be authentic, vulnerable, and speak to women like you who share their stories and their thoughts. When we come back, we'll have more with the Honorable Lisa MacLeod. So please don't go away. Back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. The balance of women, the balance of power belongs to women. So we're here with Lisa MacLeod. Lisa, let's just jump right in. Your work blends geopolitics, culture, and personal storytelling. Why do you think audiences are hungry for that combination right now?
I think we're seeing things around the world that challenge us on our own beliefs. I think we're starting now to equate what's happening in places like Iran and Palestine and Israel, Venezuela, and looking at it as well. Could it happen here? And without solid information, through news media on what those implications are, people draw their own conclusions. And there also is a component there of making sure that these matters are. I've also noticed in terms of politics, particularly at federal level, it's easy for I'll say the federal liberals to sort of look and say, okay, we're not going to talk about this issue. I always use this one. Women right now are being challenged as victims in many court cases across the country, criminal court cases, and their abusers are getting off. While at the same time, we're told that women's rights, for example, are at abortion, and that's that. And I think that there is a lot of women like me and you who don't like being devalued that way. We recognize that there's some challenges that are happening in the other parts of the world that we don't want to happen here. And we want to tell the good stories of the women who have succeeded, who've been blazing trails, but also the women that we want to help lift up. Because I've always believed, Liz, that strong women must support vulnerable women, but strong men must also support vulnerable women. So we need to have a conversation about our culture. And when I talk about our culture, I don't mean, you know, I'm a Presbyterian and so is Jewish. I'm not talking about if you came from India or if your family came from France. What I'm talking about is the values that we believe in terms of our Canadian culture under the rule of law and equality of women. And so these are things that I really think we have to distill and really start being realistic about some of the challenges we're facing around the world. So that's where I think the storytelling comes in. And of course, I'm a Maritimer. I was born and bred there. So you're going to get lots of yarn out of me if you want. So that's how she goes.
Kind of like my Balkan heritage, too, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, okay, you've described leadership as a long game. Oh, what did you have to unlearn to move from survival leadership to sustainable influence?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing because you're always fighting. It almost seems like scraps when you're in opposition and you want to be the leader, you want the media. Then you're in government and you're like, okay, I don't want to be anywhere near the media. I want just to have my opportunity to make change, make difference, whatever. And so leaving the political arena and leaving that microphone, which was just temporary, it was on loan by the people of Nepean Carleton for me for 19 years. But when I created my own path, it was what was my own voice. You have to strip, your previous life away so that you can find out what your true path is moving forward. That's a bit complicated for people. I like to say, there's the good, the messy, and the bad. And the good is fun. It's good. The messy can be fun depending on what you make out of it, and the bad you just have to get through. And so I went through all of that over the past year, a little bit more, and really it has been about focusing on my own podium and bringing people that I share values with, whoever they are, and just moving forward. And like, again, going right back to that, I wrote my own mandate. I'm creating my own job. And to be a leader doesn't mean you have to be the MPP or the MP or the premier or the prime minister, city councillor. That's a big L. Small L leadership, everyone has the capacity and the capability of doing it every single day in every different way.
And I think that's key, and that's so entrepreneurial of women to begin with. We always want to share our voice, help the next generation, share what we know with the now generation, the future generation. And I think it's important that you said, you wrote your own mandate. This is what you want to do. And you didn't wait for anyone to create a job for you. You didn't wait for anyone to do anything for you. This is what you wanted to do. And now you've started two companies too. And I am looking forward to actually meeting you at the launch in person,
Uh,
because there's just so many things that we have in common that I think are just incredible, because we are women that want to help other women. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more of the Honorable Lisa MacLeod. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're discussing the balance of power belongs to women. And I'm joined by the Honorable Lisa MacLeod, co-founder of Secord Strategies and Wandering Women North of 50. So let's jump into tourism, culture, and storytelling, because they're often dismissed as a soft power. How have you seen them function as serious economic and diplomatic tools?
Well, I'll tell you, I think people figured out during the pandemic how important they were and how much those soft powers were. And I was minister at the Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture at the time. You're looking at a $75 billion suite of sectors in Ontario alone, larger than the GDP of Manitoba, larger than mining, forestry, and agriculture put together. That's pretty big bucks. You're dealing with some of the biggest brands in the world, like the Raptors and Air Canada. You're dealing with some of the smallest little community organizations like your local museum or the Timbits hockey. And you're dealing with some of the places that are known around the world, like Niagara Falls and the CN Tower. So they appear as a soft power, but collectively, just like women over 50, collectively, when they're working in the same direction, they're a powerhouse. And so we noticed that during the pandemic. But you're also starting to see this happen right now in Nova Scotia, where the government has decided they're going to cut all of their heritage, sport, tourism, and culture funding, and it's made a lot of news. I think they're doing that this week, and a lot of people are coming out opposing these cuts. Why? Because tourism happens in every single community, no matter what. So when industry fails, tourism, culture, sport, and heritage are still there. They're what brings communities together. And I call it a double bottom line. $75 billion suite of sectors, but also talks about our cultural identity, our heritage, and the reasons that we love to be an Ontarian, a Canadian, or from wherever you're at in our country, in any community.
So, Lisa, we were talking about you starting these two platforms. You're building platforms rather than just participating in them. What responsibility comes with owning the microphone instead of just borrowing it?
Yeah, I borrowed it for a long time and I was grateful. It was on loan to me and that was amazing. Creating your own is really bringing in other people who align with your views and your values. My business partner, Susan Troupe, she was my chief of staff, a parliamentarian in her own right. And then a mutual friend of ours, Daniela Bisson, she came out of nowhere. She's from Niagara, now living in Nova Scotia, my old stomping grounds. And there's days we have meetings and we don't realize we're having meetings, and we all have the same fundamental belief that we want to support communities across Canada. We want to preserve and protect Canadian women and our views and our values. And we want to support these industries that are meaningful to us. And so to be able to have your own platform by building it, you know what? It may not always be lucrative. I may not always get noticed, but at the end of the day, we're able to amplify other women's voices. And, you and I have talked. I'm excited that you're going to be part of our launch, but also you're going to be part of our magazine when it comes out in summer. And we're bringing elevating these voices because in many ways we're talking about women over 50 who are adventurous across the country and how they travel. And then we're asking them, well, what's your cause? And so, Laureen Harper will be our first cover girl. adventurer. She would choose Banff over Buckingham Palace any day. And then I asked, what is your cause? And it was sex trafficking, something that I had been combating for a long time as a cabinet minister, and even before. And so through that, we're working with a number of different organizations across the country to amplify their voice and what that problem is. So it's been fun. Am I doing it right? I don't know. I hope so.
Well, you'll learn soon enough. We have about 30 seconds left. I want one more question. When you think about legacy, not in years, but in impact, what conversation do you hope women and leaders are having because you helped start it?
Did I help her? Are they helping the next person? Sheila Copps, who never met me, helped me because she had a baby while in office. When I got to the legislature with a baby, I changed the standing orders. And then a young lady named Andrea Kanjan is there now, and she's able to breastfeed her daughter and son on the floor of the legislature. Did I help her?
Good for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on Empowered with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Fun. That's all I
Fun,
can say.
fun. Women over 50 should know you don't always have to blaze the trail. Sometimes widening the path is what helps another woman rise, but always stand for something, even if at first you must stand alone. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.